All right, this video is about place value in decimals. So we're looking at numbers to the right-hand side of the decimal. Here at the top, we have our place value chart. So our decimal would belong here between the tens and the ones place. So let's put a big exaggerated decimal in there to kind of signal where that's at. One thing about the decimal place values is that we have ones, tens, hundreds, thousands. When we go to the right of that decimal, we do not repeat the ones, but everything else is repeated. Tens, tenths, hundreds, hundredths, thousand, thousandths. So everything else would continue out on the right. The ones is the only one that is not repeated. There is no such thing as a once place. All right. So with that in mind, let's take a look at the first example. If I want to make 25 a decimal, if I want to put a decimal in the number 25, where would I place that decimal so that it is still worth 25? Well, I would need to think about what places these numbers would be in. The 2 would be in the tens place. The 5 would be in the ones place. So the decimal would be directly after the digit that's in the ones place. So it would look like this. So it is still worth 25. So even if the number does not contain a decimal, it still technically has a decimal, or you can place a decimal at the end. So the decimal is on the right of the whole number. All right, so we did a lot of this for the whole numbers place value. Now let's talk about it for the decimal place value. It says name the underlined digit. So you can simply count how many places away it is from the decimal and then compare that to the numbers and the names in the chart. Or if you know your chart names, you can just name them backwards. So after the decimal, we have the tenths. Then we have the hundredths. So the 4 is in the hundredths place. And then we get into standard and expanded form. So in this next example, it's written in word form. When you see a number written in word form, a couple of things for you to look for. The first thing that you should look for is the word and. If there is a word and in that example, I would circle it to help your brain remember that, hey, there's an and there. And then the last thing I would have you look for is what I would call its last name. And that would be the place value name of the last digit. And in this case, it's the thousands. Okay, so if I were to write this in standard form, I'm going to ignore everything in front of that and, or anything behind that and sign. So in front of that and word is 5. So we know it says 5. When we see and, that would signal a decimal. And then behind it, I'm going to focus on this last word here, thousandths. I'm going to look back up at my chart and figure out how many places behind that decimal is the thousandths. So there are 3 places behind the decimal until I get to the thousandths place. I need to fill in those 3 digits so that it says 614. How do you write the number 614? Does it take up 3 places, or is it more than that? Or is it less than that? Think about how you would write that. So 614 does need exactly 3 places. So just writing 614 on those 3 blanks would complete this problem. Expanded form. This is going to be a little bit different than the whole numbers. I am going to ask that you do it like the multiplication way that I showed in lesson 1.1, I believe. Actually, no, it was 1.2. So we're going to expand this using a decimal form. Okay, it starts out the same as a whole number would. We simply start with a parenthesis, and we start with the first digit. And we're going to multiply it by the place value that it's in. That 5, if we look at this chart, is in the ones place. So we're going to simply put a 1. Plus, go to the next digit, new parenthesis. The next digit is a 6. What place is that 6 in? That 6 is in this tenths place. How do I write a tenth as a decimal? Think about it. How would I write the number 1/10 as a decimal? That would be 0.1. So behind it, because we're working on decimals, we're going to write 0.1, 1/10. Plus, go to the next digit. My next digit is a 1. What place is it in? It would be in the hundredths place. What would be different with the decimal compared to the tenths to make it equal 100th? Well, it would be 0.01. That is how I would write 100th. So I'm going to use that down here as my place value. And then I'm going to write my last digit, new parenthesis, 4, and then its place. Its place is in the thousandths place. If you look for the pattern, you should be able to correctly tell me the way to write a thousandth. Be 0.001. So that is the digit that we're going to use down here to complete our expanded form. Okay, so again, just like when we did whole number, it is the digit from the problem times the place value that it's in. Okay, so when we get to the right-hand side of the decimal, our place values become decimals. That should make sense, right? All right, so this is the new one for you. Now we're going to do expanded form using fractions. The only difference between fractions and what we did right here is I am simply going to change these 3 things that I'm underlining. Instead of the decimal that I used, I'm going to replace them with the fraction that means the same value. Everything else in that problem stays exactly the same. So we should be able to zip through this quickly. 5 times 1 did not change. The 5 is still in the ones place. 6, the only thing that changes is the place value. Instead of writing the decimal, we are now going to write the fraction. So go back up to the tenths place. What fraction is in that box? 1/10. Go to the next digit. Instead of 100th, how do I write that as a fraction? 100th. And our last digit, how do I write that as a fraction? 1,000th. Okay, so again, the only thing that changed were those 3 place values from a decimal into a fraction. All right, so now that you've learned all of those formats, now let's do some more practicing. I guess before going on I should probably point out this little trick over here. If I'm going to write 10, that's the number 10, and if I put a decimal after the 1, this 0 right here is in the tenths place. If I write 100, this 0 is in the hundredths place. And if I write 1,000, and that's a decimal, this 0 is in the thousandths place. So kind of a little trick that would help you remember the place values, the names, and where they are located in a number. All right, let's go ahead and look at these last examples. Write in standard form. Standard form, if you recall, is word form, or I'm sorry, number form. So we are going to write this in numbers. Again, same thing as what we did up here. Let's look for those special words. Let's look for that word and then let's look for that last place value name. So in front of the and, I have a 5. And would signal a decimal. And then 87 needs to be written so that the last digit is in the hundredths place. If we go back up here at the top and look at our chart, the hundredths place is 2 places behind the decimal. So I need to fill in 2 digits, and it has to say 87. So that works out okay. I have 2 digits and I have 2 blanks. So 5.87 is 5 and 87 hundredths. Number 2 is the reverse of the expanded form. So they give you the expanded form. Your job is to make it into standard form. Okay, so each chunk represents simply a digit, and it's telling you what place that digit is in. Okay, so there is a 2 in the tens place, so that's worth 2. There is a 6 in the ones place. The ones place is right next to the tens place. Then we get into fractions. So right here would be our split. This would be the left side of the decimal. This would be the right side of the decimal because we have fractions of a number. So my decimal goes next. In the tenths place, there is a 9. So that would be my very first place behind. In the hundredths place, there is a 1. And in the thousandths place, there is a 4. You should notice that these fractions are the same fractions that are being used up here in this place value chart. Okay, now let's write this correctly in word form. So just like we did whole numbers, we're going to split it into chunks. Our first chunk is going to be anything that's to the left of the decimal. In this case, it's just a 2-digit number, which makes it pretty easy. So to say that, we would say 26. We are at our decimal. That is our next chunk. At the decimal, remember what special word do we say? And then behind the decimal, a couple of things about behind the decimal. We do not use commas behind the decimal. Even if it had 10 digits, there is no comma that is behind a decimal. It's just digits. So how do I say that chunk that I just boxed in? 914. So that's the next thing that I would write. 914. The last thing is probably the thing that most students would forget. If we go back up here to these two examples, notice that they have this last place value name. That is what I call its last name. So we're going to look here at this last digit. What place is that last digit located in? Compare it to the chart. It's the third digit to the right of the decimal. So that is the thousandths place. So we have to include the last name on our decimal. Okay, so again, 26 and 914, and then we have to say the name of its last place, thousandths. All right, go ahead and try these two on your own. Pause the video, try them on your own, and then compare your answers back with my answers and make sure that you agree. All right, so again, same thing. We're going to break it up into chunks. The first chunk is whatever is in front of the decimal. In this case, it is 12. Make sure you use that resource that's in your Unit 0 packet that has the spellings of words so you can spell the words correctly. Then we're at our decimal, so we will say and. Last chunk is the back half, which is 42. And don't forget its last name. This time we are 2 places behind the decimal. If we look back up at our chart, the second place behind the decimal is called the hundredths place. Super important that you put those THS's at the end of anything that is to the right of the decimal. All right, hopefully you got that one right. Check the last one. Okay, again, we're going to break it into chunks. This time we have a few more chunks because those digits on the left of the decimal are a little longer. So we're going to go in front of the comma, and we're going to say 1. What period is that 1 in? Because I'm at a comma, so I need to say the period name. So that is 1000. Go to the next chunk, the next period of 3. How do I say that? 17. My next chunk is my decimal point, so I will say and. My last chunk is anything behind the decimal, which is read as 67. And to finish it off, I need to say what place that 7 is in. That 7 is in the third place behind the decimal. So my third place behind the decimal in my chart is the thousandths place. So 1017 and 67 thousandths. So very similar to whole numbers in all of the different forms that we've discussed. Hopefully, since you've had some practice with whole numbers, your decimals should come fairly easily.